Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gavinsky's Tutorials. Today I'm sharing my personal list of 10 favourite iPad music making apps released in 2024. I'll also name 5 honourable mention apps that stood out for various reasons but didn't really make my top 10. It was really hard to choose, by the way. And I'll finally mention 6 things that came out this year that I didn't have much time to dive into but that seem really promising. So I'm not 100% vouching for those, but I wouldn't feel right if I didn't mention them. So the apps in this video were chosen from 87 music making apps for iPad that I got that came out this year. And some of them, but not all, work on iPhone, and some are available on desktop as well, many of them actually. So in no particular order, here are the apps that impressed me most this year. So first, Faf Smash. This is brilliant. So it's something I felt didn't get anywhere near the reception it should have got when it released, and I also kind of overlooked it actually initially. So it's just a really heavy duty upwards compressor. It's got nice, built-in gating and stuff. It's one of those serious secret sauce plugins, great for bringing out details and sounds. So you could use it in EDM and stuff obviously, but you could also use it in ambient and soundscape stuff, where you want to take the details out of things. This was my favourite among the 3 apps that Fred released this year, but they were all good. Okay, next, Axon III by Audio Damage. So Axon III is a really interesting drum synth and sequencer. I did a detailed video on this on my channel, like I did on most of the apps I'm going to talk about in this video. And good for doing the kind of percussive bell-like sounds I love, as well as just more standard percussion. So the sequencer is really special. You need to wrap your head around it. You need to learn how to use it. But it's a nice workout for your brain if you like that kind of thing. And the prices on iOS of Audio Damage apps are always an absolute bargain. Now, before I go on and mention the next app, I'll just let this play in the background. Let me just say a really big thanks to my patrons and the devs who sponsored videos from me this year, and anyone who used my affiliate links, anybody who donated to me. That support is really crucial. So let me ask you, are you a regular viewer of this channel? And, if we met on the street, would you buy me a coffee? Would you buy me a beer? Have you got value from what I do? If you haven't, you've never donated, please look at the pinned comment of this video. PayPal, buy me a coffee links. You got my Patreon there. Maybe even just sign up to that for a few months, or start using my plugin boutique affiliate link when you're buying desktop apps. I'd really appreciate it. The support is needed and it's really gratefully received. Okay, thanks a lot. So the next app that I'm going to talk about here is Mass Midi Sequencer. Now, Mass, this was beautiful. A very unique MIDI sequencer with some physics-based elements and a beautiful UI. I thought something different. So it can do polyphonic sequences with really quirky timing. And in my video on it, I mentioned that Jay Dilla, for example, I think would really have loved an app like this. It does take time to master. It has a bit of a learning curve. I wish it had a randomizer, but if you treat it as a game, it's something you can really spend hours getting lost in and can get some quite interesting musical results. Okay, next thing is also a MIDI app, and that is Harmony Bloom. Harmony Bloom by Mario Nieto. On the App Store, he's listed as MNR development. So this is a really, really unique MIDI generator, and it's got a randomizer that often produces really great results. And that's a rarity among MIDI apps. Plus it has undo and redo buttons, and it's just so satisfying to look at the patterns. You can also feed notes into it, so you can use those notes as your input, or you can select your note groups from a massive range of choices. So this won the most innovative category at the 2024 KVR Audio Reader's Choice Awards for Best Audio and MIDI Software. Next up, I want to go back to this. Next up was Ridgewalk by Akil Adam, or Adam, I'm not really sure. So this is an FX app, also on desktop by the way. that can produce gorgeous granular loops. Definitely something fresh and quirky. Beautiful. Much cheaper, you know, than a lot of those boutique granular pedals that are all the rage. So it is a bit let down, I feel, by its UI design. You know, it's got tabs here. There's a lot of wasted space. I felt that everything could have been on one page, all the controls viewable at the same time. It also came out really too buggy, but it was definitely one of the apps that I enjoyed experimenting most with this year. Had a lot of fun with it, thought it sounded beautiful, and there was a real need for something like this. Now, moving on, we have Ringotones by Quantavox. So I'm a huge fan of ring mod sounds, and Ringotones was just so well designed. I absolutely loved it. It just sounds lovely and comes with a bunch of really good presets. It was obviously made with a lot of skill and love, I felt. Okay, next, what do we have? Next we have One Shot by Clave Grand. So One Shot, highly anticipated. If you want realistic drum sounds, this is just a great choice. It has great kit collections. You can load your own samples as well. It has loads of velocity layers, round robins, you know. Great app, make your own kits, whatever, but there's also just so much good stuff that comes with it. Even without buying the in-app purchases, you know, the jazz drums that come in the app itself are just brilliant. Okay, next we had Whirly by Audio Thing. So Whirly, this was one of the few non-synth instruments that came out this year. And it's a mainly physically modelled Wurlitzer. Now, I love piano tech, but I found this much more characterful than the piano tech Whirly. Now, I've turned the pedal noises and stuff down here. They can get a bit overbearing for me, but I really loved the sound of this. So Carlo, the Audio Thing dev, mentioned that he wanted to get a feeling of what a Whirly sounds like when you're playing it, rather than when you're in the audience. So I have no idea what it sounds like to play an actual Whirly, but I love how this sounds. Really loved it. Next, we have FM Zone. FM Zone by Toybox. So all three of the Toybox synths have been something really fresh and different, and this one was no exception. Probably the best and most interesting of those three. I love how it gives you a very accessible front end, but if you want to go in deep, you can. If you really understand FM, you can go in deep, or you can just use the amazing collections of sounds where everything's been done for you. So it was just a great app, very interesting. Loved it. Okay, next, what have we got? Next, Microwave 1 by Waldorf. So I love these kinds of retro wavetable sounds, you know, glassy, cold, metallic, and so on. So this is a bona fide piece of synth history. It was such a groundbreaking device when it came out decades ago, but it still sounds so good. It has a really easy to navigate UI. It's really fun to tweak the wavetable positions, or to play around with the knob here, navigate different wavetables. Beautiful. So now I've got 6 honourable mentions. These were apps that stood out from the crowd in some way, but didn't quite make my top 10. So the first honourable mention is Revolve by Clave Grand. Let me actually use that on... Whoops, let me grab that. Let me use this on Microwave here. So I really didn't and don't need another reverb, but this was just so beautifully packaged and so great sounding. It gives me the kind of feeling you get from, you know, having a beautiful physical paper book. And I love how Clave Grand keep doing their own thing and not trying, like most audio devs, to make apps that scream, you know, I'm really high-tech and manly. So this was just beautiful. I really enjoyed this one. Okay, next we have Jamp Bleep. So this does really cool percussion sounds, bleeps and bloops and that kind of thing, and is totally free, So this was cool. Couldn't believe this was free. Now, next we have Rings Effects by 4 Pockets. So I love the rings in-app purchase in Terra Pro, and it does have some advantages versus this, but Terra Pro can't be used as an FX app, so it was great to see this coming along. It has its own strengths, and I love that it could be used to process incoming audio. Then we have Moto Ame by Busy Circuits, which I used at the beginning when I was demoing Smash. So I was super happy to see this desktop plugin based on the Akame's Taiko Eurorack module come to the iPad. It was just so cool and so enjoyable in some ways, but it also really frustrated me in some ways, and I talked about that in my video on it, due to some of the design choices. If there had been sliders in the modulation section for important frequency related parameters instead of these boxes, it would have been one of my favorite apps of the year for sure, and I do really like it, but it definitely frustrated me in some ways. Now, next, what do we have? FAC Physica. So, FAC Physica, let's get this on. So, I love audio rate modulation, and this was really interesting, I thought. I wish that more apps had a built-in envelope follower like this does. Lots of apps have built-in LFOs, but some of them, you know, I'm thinking of Baby Audio Atoms, for example, or Arguments by Audio thing, would produce more interesting results if they used envelope followers instead of LFOs. So I picked Ringotones over this for my top 10, but I really enjoyed Physica too, definitely. Okay, now finally I want to mention 6 apps from this year that I own but haven't had time to dive into fully yet. So with so many apps coming out every year, I'll just wait for a second there. So with so many apps coming out every year, you know, it's impossible for me to learn everything fully while also making these videos. You know, it takes so much time. I spent so much time learning different apps. So I just don't get time to learn everything, especially more detailed stuff, you know, stuff that would really take a big time investment. Sometimes I just can't justify it unless I'm being paid to make a video on it. So I can't totally vouch for these 6 in the way I can for my other recommendations, but I feel that if I did dive into them, I mean, maybe I'd find stuff I didn't like, but they seem like some of the best releases of the year, and they're things I'd really like to have time to learn properly and, you know, play with in detail, so I didn't want to skip over them. So they are Solderbox, and this I had a lot of fun with, but I only played with it for a couple of hours, and I'd really need to spend more time with it. So, yeah, this, you know, a semi-modular synth and FX by 2 very influential figures in the iOS music scene, Jakob Hack and Bramboss. And like I say, I did get a few hours with it, and it seems very promising for sure. Now, next, Patterning 3. This was very highly anticipated. Patterning 3 by Olympia Noise Company. So this was an update on one of the most famous and innovative drum machines ever released on iOS, and this finally made it AUV3. Just a super cool app. But again, I didn't really get the time to dive into all the nooks and crannies of this, so I'm not vouching for it 100%, but it seems very likely to have been one of the best apps that came out last year. And then we have Stacks by Kong Burn on the App Store called John House. This is a synth sequencer looper with one of the most futuristic UIs I saw this year. And note that this can be loaded as an instrument, but you can also load it as an FX that can be used to process incoming audio. Okay, now what have we got next? The next 3 I'm actually not going to demo, as I just haven't had time to explore them enough. So they are, anyway, Midi Step by 4 Pockets, A very feature-rich and powerful polyphonic MIDI sequencer focused on user-controlled randomization. And then we also have EG Nodes by Elliott Garage, which can be used as MIDI AUV3 inside hosts like AUM, right, what I'm using here. But if you use it standalone, you can actually host AUV3 apps inside Nodes itself, so it can be a host as well. And then we had Prism MIDI sequencer by Tyler Quartraro. So this, from what I understand, this really has a very idiosyncratic workflow, and that's why I didn't learn it. It just looked like it was going to be a lot of work to learn. But what I hear from people who did take the time, they really love it and think it's something very worthwhile. So I just didn't have the time, but it seems highly promising. So yeah, I think that's everything covered. So that's it then for this roundup of the apps of the year. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was useful. And little reminder, you might be subscribed to this channel. You might even have the notification bell tapped. But I bet when I put out videos, you often don't get notifications. So what I've started doing is when I put out a new video, I post something on Patreon saying, I put this new video up on my YouTube, put a link to it, and I post that to all the tiers of Patreon. So even if you're just a free member, you'll get a notification. So if you would like to get email notifications when I put out a new video, that's a great way to get it. Thanks again to everyone supporting me in whatever ways you're doing it. And I hope you all have a really great Christmas, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.